Hi. We are here to talk about one of the cases that is in the materials that we're so excited about. And what we'd like to do is illustrate at least one way to go at that case. The case is to become a Buckeye. It's not a recipe, it's not a formula, but it's an approach. And we think it's a useful one. So we'd like to do it with you guys. The case is to become a Buckeye, and Buckeye refers to Ohio State University. So everybody who goes to Ohio State University is called a Buckeye? Is that the deal?
That's their mascot.
I mean, that's not necessarily in the case. Okay. All right. So to become a Buckeye is about a 14-year-old high school student who is thinking already, as all 14-year-olds do, about where to go to college. He lives in Ohio, so Ohio State University is one of the schools that might come up. And we'd like to take a shot at the case. So the student's name is Tom. 14-year-old's name is Tom. What do we know about the case, besides what I've just said, that he's 14 and his name is Tom and he wants to go to college?
One of the key things that we know is that Tom is really excited about college, but and he's a really solid student, but his grades aren't necessarily like top of the class or the most stellar. So he is trying to consider how to take the interest that he has, his academic experience, and try to find the best fit for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we know something about him.
Yeah.
Actually, we also know he's well organized.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
14.
He's
And his parents are well organized.
Yes.
That
Yes.
helps.
Yes. Yes.
The second thing we need to know that he is concerned, as most Americans are when they face higher education, is costs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's concerned about costs.
Yeah.
So that's another issue for us to consider.
Money is an issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Money's an issue. He's not enormously wealthy. In fact, he's described in the case as middle income, and he's got 3, I think, younger siblings.
Yeah.
Right. All of whom would probably go to college.
Yeah.
Along
with that, though, he's very willing and excited to work and try to minimize the costs.
Exactly right.
So he's been looking for some sort of job so that he can set up some sort of savings plan. So he really wants to structure his time and energy so that he can minimize the amount he's going to have to pay for college.
Right. Right. That's part of who he is and his level of organization. So when he says that's what he wants to do, he probably will do it. Yeah.
Another thing is it doesn't seem like he's concerned about location, right? Which plays as a factor for a lot of students is deciding. I don't think he cares in the case whether he stays in Ohio or he goes to another place outside of Ohio. So that makes it a little easier within the borders of the case.
We should go back and look at the case, because I think he says he'd rather stay a little closer to home.
Or at least his family is worried about
his
him
mother
going.
wants him to stay. He'd probably be happy to go to California, but his family wants him to stay closer to home. But about geography, one thing we can say that's very significant, he lives in a state with a state university that has a very good reputation. So he's in Ohio. Ohio State University is considered, I think, one of the best in the nation. Yeah, right. Okay, so that's.
And Ohio also has, though, a lot of private schools that are also fairly well regarded, like Xavier or Oberlin.
Right.
So there's a lot of diversity in terms of what he could choose and still stay relatively close to home.
Right. It's not like he's in a place where everyone goes to one college.
Right.
Okay. Well, all right. So this is what we know. What's the issue? What's the question that we have to address if we're going to give this kid some advice. We're going to tell him we're going to suggest to him, not tell him. We're going to suggest to him where we think he should go. What's the question that we have to answer? What is the problem?
The problem is, where should he go to college?
Okay.
That's simple.
Don't make it too simple.
Where should he go to college? That's the question.
Right,
That's
where
a
should he
central.
go to college?
That's a central question for the whole
good.
case.
But then, like, from that, we also have to think about a lot of all the complicating factors that we started to allude to. We need to think about, like, how much is that going to cost? And, like, should cost play a factor? Or what does he maybe want to study? And, like, might that determine where he wants to go to college?
Yeah, which college is going to have the best program for him in terms of his interests.
Right.
14, he doesn't
really know yet.
Clear yet. Okay.
So then the question is, like, which school is going to give him the environment to help him find what he's passionate about and what he's interested in.
But even before that, I think another premise we have to look at, and that kids will raise in classrooms, is whether to go to college, period. That's an issue that will come up because there's been a lot of discussion in the last several years of people arguing whether asking the question, is college worth it?
Right.
So that's another premise, especially in Tom's case where he has 3 other siblings to worry about, and their parents are of middle-class means. They're not super wealthy. So that has to be one out there. So that's another issue to investigate. And the Department of Education, Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics have a whole bunch of well-researched information
about that answer. So it sounds like as we go at this, we're identifying the central issue, as you say, is where should he go to college? And then some other, how do I want to call this? Other issues that are part of the path we need to take to get to the answer to the main question. One of which has to do with cost. Another of which has to do with opportunities to study with what he wants to study when he gets older than 14 and has a better idea of it. And another is, should he go to college at all? So it sounds like, Anand, you would like to take on that issue. So how would you sort of get us an answer on that? What would you look at?
So the best is to look at what are some credible data-based websites that you can use to investigate that issue and compare multiple viewpoints on that issue based on reliable sources that you would do in any class,
in any research.
In any research.
Yeah, I mean, just to push you a bit further on that, it sounds like you're saying and suspect that there is evidence that it is important to go to college. That there's a lot of talk about kids should. Too many people are going to college, and there are a lot of jobs out there that don't require a college education, and people should just, in some cases, go straight into the workforce. And you're looking at data with the suspicion that that's not the case.
Right. So based on my own experience, I know that there are several government sites that are nonpartisan that explain with hard data what are the returns of going to a college education versus finishing at a high school degree. College, I mean a 4-year college versus a 2-year college, or finishing at a high school degree. And you see that the labor market returns are quite high for college. So, but that is a decision I made for myself after looking at the data, and this is what Tom or other students have to do to come up with an answer.
Right, and if we were going to keep talking about this, and Andrew had the exact opposite point, we're not going to do this because we don't have the time, but if he had the exact opposite point of view, he would be pulling other kinds of information, and you guys would really have to...
Or like another complicating factor that we could think about with this particular question is like, is it important that Tom goes to college right after high school? Maybe he wants to go to college, but he would rather work for a few years and save up. And then we could talk about the dynamics of that.
How that works out.
How that would work out, and like how that might change his likelihood to finish college, or like how it might help him not have to take out a lot of debt to go to college.
Right, to get a year's worth of experience, life experience, and money
under
his belt. Right. That's a very good point. And a third along this line is maybe he shouldn't go to a 4-year college. Maybe he should go to college, but not necessarily. Why does he have to go to 4 years? Maybe he should just do 2 years and then stay close to home, help out with the kids, the younger kids, and then transfer to a 4-year college.
Right.
Put that on the table. But we would have to research that, like.
Right. because some of the information, you could also make the case that doing a 2-year community or junior college has a much lower chance of completing
Right.
university, or putting college off. It's less likely that you'll be able to go back after you have other family commitments.
Right.
So Tom would need to like look at various forms of data and really think about what are the odds in his particular case for going back to college or completing a 2-year college.
I want to put one more on the table and then talk about how we would come back to the central question. Tom's 14. I think we need to understand when he needs to have a better idea about what he's going to study, or does he have to know before he chooses his college what he's going to study, what he's going to major in, and how much is that going to affect what he does right now? I mean, because he's got 2-3 years before he's actually going to be acting on these things. So what does he do now, and what's he going to be looking at when he's 16, for example?
Right. I think so. One of the things I think Tom should think about is using the resources that he has, free resources that he has available within his high school that he goes in, as well as the public library in his neighborhood town or in his neighborhood, that would provide free information that he can look at what his majors are, what the starting salary for a major would be, what a college would cost, and so forth. And so that's all the investigations he should be doing with the help of professionals that do this, or with his parents.
Right, because there are resources there. And we're talking about this as if it was a manageable problem, which it is. People who want to go to college often, maybe most of the time, manage to do that. So it is manageable, but it's hardly simple. I mean, we can list the issues and make it, well, if there's an issue, there's got to be a solution. It's not that simple. So the next step for us, if you were to actually go and get the data on the advantages that students who go to college have versus those who only have a high school diploma, and if we were to look at various ways in which Tom could pay for his education and get some data on that, we would then come back to the question, which is, where does he go to college? And as we've committed ourselves to offering him advice, we would give him some advice. The important thing, I think, here that the point we have to make is that having gone through this process, we'll have a point of view. We will genuinely think he should do either Xavier or Ohio State University, and we'll have reasons for that. But that's not to say that we have the answer. It isn't the answer. In fact, the important thing about it is that anybody who looked at, and this is a criteria for determining whether or not we did a good job, anybody who looked at the work we did ought to be able to go back and see why we drew the conclusion we drew. And if they come to a different point in the decision-making process and have a different answer to the question, they ought to be able to see how their answer differs from ours and what it is they don't agree with.
I think that an important part in teaching this case study and teaching similar case studies is that if your students are coming too quickly to one consensus, that it's your job as the teacher to try and push them on that and try to get them to be able to construct alternative points of view or alternative reasonings why another option would be good, because that's part of the beauty of the case, is working through and reaching different conclusions, but still using a logical and reasonable framework for doing it. Yeah.
And especially with a case like this one, although the three of us talk very rationally and reasonably about the case, I'm sure that we have preconceptions about where somebody should go to college, whether it's where we went to college, whether it's a bias in favor of small colleges, which always have a personal approach, or a bias in favor of big colleges, which have lots and lots of choices. We come with biases. We come with points of view. And it's all the more reason that our process for getting to an answer needs to be really clear. because otherwise we're going to be saying what we thought going into the problem,
Right.
and then finding out reasons to justify it. So that's what we'll do.
Right. So we hope you enjoy the case,
Yeah.
and have similar discussions that we had here with your students and your colleagues.